So you said you support victims, especially women and children. So what's your thoughts on the male migrants coming illegally to this country, being housed in local hotels, and the increase of attacks on women from them?
I'm generally worried about the attacks on women from everyone. You know, the levels of violence against women and girls in this country is intolerable.
You don't need me to tell you by now, Labour will never deal with the boats. International law and the rights of illegal immigrants will always come first. An audience member on Question Time literally asked the Labour MP, if you say you care about women and girls, why don't you stop the boats? And of course, the response was entirely predictable. Her reply was, the greatest threat to women and girls is domestic abuse. In other words, it's British men that are the real danger. So, because women suffer from domestic abuse within the home, that makes it perfectly acceptable to import hundreds of thousands of men from the third world who will literally attack and harass women on the streets. If they are in danger in the home from psycho partners and ex-partners, then the last thing they need is to feel unsafe on the streets because third world men who broke into the country are running free. It's an outrageous argument. The woman in the audience was rightly shaking her head in disbelief. Listen to this woman.
On the other hand, you cannot have, and as this is essentially what the court's decided, that those hotels are removed because of the demands of the mob. There has to be a rule of law in this country that says that things are there, you know, because the law says that they are able to be there, and not because particular ones are targeted by various protests. And that feels to me like a completely reasonable position for the government.
British citizens are in fear for their safety because of illegal immigrants, of which they know nothing about, being housed in their local communities without their consent. There have already been numerous attacks, and all she can say is, we can't have locals dictating to the government. We must uphold the law. To hell with the locals and the vast majority of the British public who want the hotels closed. They should just be ignored, and illegal immigrants should be forced upon them whether they like it or not. Carry on down that path then and see how it works out for you, because it won't work out well turning on the British people when you are supposed to be the very people that protect their interests. Danny Kruger was also on Question Time. He has recently left the Conservatives to join Reform. Watching this, it's clear to see why he is held in such high regard. He is very articulate and is a very knowledgeable politician. Sarah Zultana was also on the panel, but we all know what she stands for. And of course, she got the biggest cheer because, as we know, the audience was specifically chosen for its left-wing bias. Take a listen to the highlights.
You said you support victims, especially women and children. So what's your thoughts on the male migrants coming illegally to this country, being housed in local hotels, and the increase of attacks on women from them?
I'm generally worried about the attacks on women from everyone. You know, the levels of violence against women and girls in this country is intolerable. It's why we've declared it a national emergency, why we have to do more in order to tackle it, and that involves working with everyone in order to do this. I think the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has been really instrumental in terms of trying to get to grips with this problem, in terms of removing individuals from our country. We've announced that we will be removing any individual who breaks the law in our country on sentencing, rather than waiting for them to fill up places in our prisons, because being in this country is a privilege. It is not a right. And if you come here illegally, then you should be deported. You don't have a right to be here. And if you do, you should follow our rules and you should obey by our laws. But I'm worried about the levels of violence against women and girls everywhere. You know, 3 women a week on average are killed.
Because we don't know the background of these people, so
we don't know the background of anyone
but
working
when there's loads of male people
society,
attending living in a hotel locally to us, then it's a threat to our women and children when they're walking around in groups and we don't know their background.
We know that women and girls are more likely to be attacked or injured by someone they know, actually. And domestic abuse is probably the highest issue we have at the moment in terms of violence against women and girls. I'm not disputing that there's a problem here. Of course there's a problem here. But it's about looking at this in the whole. We can't do this individually.
Okay. Just quickly, I mean, I think if Alex is sincere about wanting to protect women and girls, and I'm sure she is, then she's got to recognise she's got another problem, which is that this government believes in the international human rights framework, which means that you can't deport illegal immigrants on arrival. Well, you're not doing it, and it's because of legal challenges under the Human Rights Act, which your party brought in. What we absolutely do need to do is do what you said, which is deport people. You won't do it, and I'm afraid it's disingenuous to suggest that these young men who are coming over here do not represent a disproportionate threat to women and children. That is statistically the fact. So to protect them, and also, by the way, to do the right thing by the many millions of people around the world who are displaced and who need help, prioritising the rich, fit young men who can afford to pay thousands of pounds to break into our country illegally, that is not compassionate, either to them or to our people. So yes, we need to deport people who come in here illegally. The only way to do that is to get out of the European Convention on Human Rights, which you guys won't do.
No, I know you want to go, but let me just bring Zara.
I do find some of the rhetoric around safety, around women and girls, really concerning when, in my home region of the West Midlands, 2 Sikh girls were raped in racially motivated attacks by far-right individuals. And we find very few kind of media coverage of stories like that. And we have to highlight that some of that anti-migrant rhetoric and rhetoric that demonises asylum seekers is sickening. It has led to racial violence in our towns and cities where women and children, based on the colour of their skin and whether they wear a headscarf or not, have been targeted. And this rhetoric has been drip-fed. It's on our front pages. It comes from highest offices in the country. And what we have to recognise is that the issues in our country, whether it's underfunding of the NHS, the fact that we don't have council houses, low wages and insecure work, those are political decisions made by politicians. They are not the fault of some of the most vulnerable people fleeing war and persecution and put up in, not the Ritz Hotel as some people might want to portray, really shoddy accommodation, rats in the corridors, poor food, but they are demonised, and people are being told they're the people taking your jobs, they're the people taking your housing. Please look up, look at the super rich, look at the landlords hiking your rent, look at the energy CEOs making millions of pounds, look at the politicians who are happy to get millionaire donors and freebies but are taking away opportunities from the rest of the country.
Okay. I'm going to move on in a minute. I just want to hear a couple more points.